The Double Dragon series seems to be one of those series where people aren't exactly sure what's happening with it, which is pretty weird given how influential the series has been to the beat-em-up genre. From its humble beginnings as an arcade game back in 1987, the franchise has changed hands several times, and we've seen a couple of titles in the past few years with Double Dragon 4 in 2017, Double Dragon Gaiden in 2023, and now we have Double Dragon Revive, yet another retelling of the adventures of Billy and Jimmy Lee. The game is published by Arc System Works, who are also the developers of the Master System port of Double Dragon, as well as the current license holders to the franchise. And this game was developed by Yuke, who are very well known for their wrestling games, particularly the WWE games from the early 2000s up to 2018. Staying true to its roots, Double Dragon Revive is a classic beat-em-up, and you can choose to play this as a single player experience or with a friend in multiplayer, though I wasn't able to find any people online to play this with. Set sometime in the future, the game takes place 15 years after a nuclear war. Humanity have rebuilt colonies among the wastelands, and the concepts of nations have faded away. Unfortunately, this means that the people are at the mercy of the colony rulers. The colony this game takes place on is built on the coast and is ruled by fear, with the inhabitants at the mercy of the Shadow Warriors gang. Standing up to the gang are brothers Billy and Jimmy Lee, two young men who are trained in the fighting style of Sosetsuken. One day, the brothers, after a day of patrolling, head into a bar hoping to get a bite to eat and catch up with their friend Marion Kelly. Unfortunately, Marion is nowhere to be found, and after talking to a kid at the bar, find that she has been taken by the Shadow Warriors, with Roper, an enforcer for the gang, in charge of the group that had taken her away. The brothers head to the Warehouse District, the first of 8 stages that this game has to offer, and where things kick off. But is the game any good? Find out in The Good. I like the references that this game offers, with characters doubling as a homage to the original Double Dragon trilogy, and Double Dragon Advance with certain characters. While Billy and Jimmy are initially the 2 characters you'll get access to, you'll gain 2 more allies in the form of Marion, who is revealed to also be a practitioner of Sosetsuken, as well as Yagyu Ranzo, a ninja who helps the team out after mistaking them for enemies. Ranzo appeared in Double Dragon 3 as a boss character, and in the NES version of it he becomes an ally, and he plays a similar role in this game, though more of a mid-boss as opposed to an end-level boss. I also like Marion's default colour scheme, as that's a reference to her appearance in River City Girls. Enemies in the original, such as Obobu, Roper, Williams and Linda, are now enforcers of the Shadow Warriors, and do have some backstory that you can read and can be unlocked through completing the game's extra mode, which provides you with challenges to complete. Another enemy, Burnov from Double Dragon 2, has been reassigned to being a regular enemy from his original role as a boss first before becoming a recurring enemy. The game uses stills to tell the story as you progress, and I really like the art style of the stills and the character designs of everyone. The game can also be enjoyed with English or Japanese voices, and I'm a big fan of Takahiro Koyasu voicing Jimmy, as he has a very distinct voice, and as someone who grew up with Gundam, you can hear him from a mile away. If there's another thing about the game I really liked, it's the game's soundtrack. The music of Double Dragon Revive has arranged music from Double Dragon, Double Dragon 2, and even Super Double Dragon, Return of Double Dragon if you prefer the Japanese title. There are also some original tracks which sound pretty good too. The game also spreads out the arranged music from the series, so you get a good mix of arranged music from previous games and new music, which really gives it time to shine. The homages to previous Double Dragon games was a really nice touch, and I quite enjoyed it. The game's combat I'm a little mixed on, so let's get the positives out of the way first. I like the general idea of the game's combat. Your characters can chain moves together, and I like how powerful it makes you feel, especially as enemies start getting more health later into the game. You can also grab and or knock enemies into gimmicks, which are parts of the background that you can interact with. This will generally defeat the enemy immediately, so it's really handy to do this with enemies that have a lot of health, as that can quickly get them out of the way. You can also interact with other level elements, such as wall jumping to perform an aerial hyper blow, which is an attack with an area of effect. You can also perform these after swinging and jumping off certain poles or signs too. As you fight, you slowly fill up the dragon orbs located underneath your health bar. Once one of the orbs are filled, you can unleash a finishing move or a hyper blow, which is really good for crowd control or to deal heavy damage to the health bar of a boss. Each character has their own moves, and while Billy, Jimmy and Marion have similar moves, being Sosetsuken practitioners, they have their own variations of those moves. Ranzo is the interesting one, having thrown projectiles and use of ninjutsu incorporated into his moves. Weapons can be picked up and used, and the damage they do are quite satisfying too. They do however have limited durability and can range from a couple of uses to several, with the tonfas being my personal favourite as it can fill the dragon orbs very quickly. Bosses tend to have a pattern that you can exploit in order to beat them, and even on harder difficulties I never found the game too easy or too difficult. I thought it was just right. With that though, we've covered what I've liked about the game, so let's talk about what I didn't like with the bad. Let's now talk about the parts of the game's combat that I didn't like. I found the throw mechanic to be a little inaccurate. To activate some gimmicks or stage hazards, you're required to hit or throw an enemy into them. Lining an enemy up with the gimmick and actually hitting the enemy towards it are two different things, as I found that not all grabs and throws or knockbacks will knock the enemy at the gimmick and may be slightly off, thus not triggering it. Sometimes when trying to throw enemies off ledges, they might hit an invisible wall instead, which ends up saving them instead of instantly defeating them. This has happened on multiple playthroughs on different stages, and I found this pretty annoying. The game does have a block feature, but I've rarely used it. While you can block normal attacks, your guard will be broken if an enemy uses a charge move, and blocking won't work on weapon attacks or if you're attacked from an exposed side, which makes sense. There is also a dodge mechanic, which is a separate button you can use to roll out of a rough situation, or in Ranzo's case, briefly teleport, and I did use that more. A lot of your moves have recovery frames too, so you can't cancel to a block or dodge, which makes them trickier to use. While this does add a more strategic element, it more or less discouraged me from using block, and I ended up relying on dodging a lot more. I also think the story could have been expanded on further to account for the additional characters. It seems a little weird when you're playing Marion or Ranzo and then suddenly there's dialogue of the Lee brothers or the enemies talking about one another. Just feels a little awkward when you first meet a Bobo and he wants you to show him what your Sosetsuken is capable of when you're running around as Ranzo using ninjutsu. Having unique levels for the different characters also allows you to showcase different enemies, bosses, as well as even potential playable characters such as Jeff, Shintaime and Seimei, and Jim. While yes, it can affect multiplayer, perhaps just have the multiplayer be like an arcade mode where you can just pick any character and just play through the Lee Brothers campaign without the additional dialogue. This is just a minor gripe though. The game does a pretty good job with what it has, but I think the potential is there. That's all I have to talk about with the bad, so let's wrap things up with the opinion. I actually enjoyed playing through Double Dragon Revive. The game has a lot of references to older games in the series, and I liked a lot of the game's combat. In saying that though, there are aspects of the combat that could be refined and touched up on, and maybe the story could have been expanded on more outside of the extras challenges, and some lore that you can read in the visual novel style, but overall, Double Dragon Revive isn't a great game, but it isn't a terrible one either. If you enjoy beat 'em ups, then you'll get some mileage out of this. Though if you're a fan of Double Dragon, you might feel more mixed on this, as I found that some fans like it and others absolutely hate it. I personally sit in the former camp, and I do hope that there's a potential sequel in the future which hopefully might address the issues I've had with the game. So with that, it's time for my rating. I would give Double Dragon Revive Willy out of 10. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for the next Infinite Backlog review. If you enjoyed today's review, feel free to like, comment and subscribe for more. You can check out our other videos or follow us on X, Instagram and Facebook. Once again, thank you for watching.